Arsenal, how overall, as quickly as you can, I suppose as brief as you can, explain this season for Arsenal.
It was a good season overall. No, let me rephrase. It was. We had a good performance in the league this season, and we ultimately fell short. But I don't think that completely takes away from some of the performances. At least for the first half of the season, we were exceptional, and we tailed off towards the end for multiple reasons, which I won't go into. But everyone's got their opinion on why that happened. But there are a lot of things that went into why we fell apart at the end. Not just the fact that Man City are really good. We slipped up in some very winnable games. So yeah, I'm content with it. I'm kind of upset about how we ended, but I think this summer's pretty key. I need to see what we do in the summer off the back of that. We could get it so wrong, and historically we don't get it right. And, you know, I can count on I can count on one hand of the last summer and January transfer windows of the last decade. How many of them I've been very happy with? It's probably like one or two where I've been like, oh, that was a good window. So yeah, we need to see what we do in the summer to build on what was a competitive season, but ultimately we fell short. But yeah, we go again, and no more throwing cups away. I don't care where we are in the league. You can't throw cups away. You just can't do that. No. I wasn't happy with that at the time, and I think that was really poor. Hindsight's one thing, but there are a lot of fans at the time going, why are we playing weekend squads in Europa League? Like, why are we not, let's compete on all fronts. Let's go for it. Like, how much is this really going to impact and then, we put all our eggs in one basket and it didn't work out. So yeah, need to see some better squad management next season and some good signings coming into the team. Some proper, some players are going to push that first 11, basically.
It's the squad size, wasn't it? I think the squad size and the kind of tail end of the season was clearly the issue. As you say, and if you're going to compete on the Champions League as well, you need a better squad to deal with those early matches, because the group stage in the Europa League is a bit of a wafty nonsense for a few of us. Some of the teams that you can play against there, but Champions League there's not. You're going to struggle, particularly, I suppose. Your coefficient. I don't know what Arsenal's coefficient is either. I don't know what seed you're going to end up in the Champions League.
It might be pot 2. There was rumours of pot 3, but I think from that last thing I saw we were pot 2.
You might be pot 2, so that would be fairly good. And so you've got, I suppose, the positives are the young players had a really good season, and they've had a sort of season on their belt. They've experienced the tough times, the difficult moments, and where they can come back from that. But have you got the squad, I guess, to deal with it in the next? But expectation is going to be completely different.
It's going to be very big next season. Yeah, I think even the biggest Arteta fans and the biggest process fans and things like that, and everyone who's really behind this whole plan, like down to a T, doesn't question anything. I think they're going to have to go, if if we're in a top 4 race next season with and we're out the trophies by like Feb, March, that's going to get a bit that's not going to be a pretty sight. I think that's poor. That's really poor. So yeah, I think next season there's no more top 4. It's like that's the bare minimum. That's how it should be. Next season, you have to win a trophy, FA Cup, Champions League, or Premier League, I think, at this point. Otherwise, what we've all been waiting for.
What's the point of the progression? Well, exactly.
That's the point, yeah.
Exactly. Well, I think the season obviously just gone. You had the Jesus injury, which was a big moment at the time, but I thought you were better without him, actually. That period afterwards was you were more threatening with a proper kind of...
Well, he was good for like 2 games. He scored straight away as soon as he came back, and then after that, he just got figured out. Teams just figured out. They were like, Jesus is going to keep running at basically teams stopped following him out of position. They basically stopped and then he couldn't find the space in the box to be effective. So when players stopped following out, he was just picking up the ball, and he's not the best passer. So it was just completely nullified. They were like, we don't need to track this guy out of the box anymore. Just keep an eye on Martinelli and Saka and let him just roam into midfield. It's fine. So yeah, he wasn't. Oh God, no more C players as well. I don't want to see any C players signed for us in this summer. Exactly. We need our own identity. Like no more hand-me-downs.
Apart from Haaland.
Yeah. If you want to give us Haaland or De Bruyne, then we can talk. Or Ruben Diaz on Nathan Ake or John Stones. But apart from that, no one else, please.
then it's a different beast.
Yeah.
And
But
so
even then, I probably wouldn't. Some of those I'll probably be a bit questionable. I'll be like, wait, what's going on here? Why are they
hang
coming
on.
to us?
Yeah, what's this? There's a plan. Exactly. Pep knows what he's doing. He lets him go for a reason. Chris loves Martinelli. I thought Martinelli had a fantastic season. I thought he's really come through as we've known he's a top young player, but I think has really announced himself this season as being really right up there. He was, I thought, consistent as any of the Arsenal squad actually throughout the year. I don't think his level dropped too much, where one or two of the others, possibly Saka later through the season, did. We've got a question. I'll show you this one first because this is transfer that won't happen, but it was interesting to consider. Kane would be good for Arsenal. Could you imagine? It's not happening, is it, Shah? I don't think so. And a question in as well. Talking of transfers, would you like Declan Rice as your heavily
Yes, please.
Declan Rice?
Yes, please. I would like Declan Rice. 100%. I'll take him out of the team.
Lovely. It's Rice and please for Lucas there. Rice and please. Because Xhaka's rumoured off, isn't he? So, I can see Rice and Partey. That's not a bad little combination. So, I say, overall the season, you gave us a race, at least in the Premier League. You gave us everyone else something different, something without that. City would have been done ages ago. So, I guess Arsenal were the exciting story for a lot of the season. So. It's Aston Villa, Charlotte. What an interesting season they've had. We had Gerrard and now we've got Emery. What do you make of Aston Villa?
Yeah, they didn't get off to the best of starts under Steven Gerrard, did they? Obviously struggled there. As soon as Emery came in, it just went on the up. Players who weren't performing under Gerrard came back, were like a totally new player. Ollie Watkins being one. They've got a few good signings. I've always thought Aston Villa, they're always one of them teams that have got really good players, but they just need the right manager in there. And someone like Emery as well. Obviously, they've got the money they can spend. They've got into Europe as well, haven't they? Now, have they got into Europe?
Yeah.
So, they've had a fantastic season. And I think that's a perfect club for Emery as well. And I think, obviously, him being there and what he can do for that club, I think he could do really, really well, like he's shown this season. And he's only been there not that long, really, has he?
No, it was a top draw appointment because he's he went back to Spain after the Arsenal appointment and done some good things out there. Obviously, Villarreal won the Europa League you get with, didn't he? Again out there. And he picked things up really quickly, I thought he was very quick in getting things off the mark. Villa turned it around quite quickly. As you said, some of the young players started to come through again. They went a little bit, I don't know, this obsession with Gerrard and Coutinho, I think, seemed to hinder everything. Since January last year, he was obsessed with that and kept forcing him in. And then it kind of was hindering people like Jacob Ramsey and people like that coming back through again for Villa.
I forgot about Ramsey as well. Yeah, he's done really well.
He did a good, and I think, I don't know what you thought, Luke, because I thought they were kind of a slow burn, a quiet one. We were all looking at Brighton and Brentford and Fulham going, this is great. And then Villa just slowly snuck in, didn't they?
They weren't conceding any goals, like standard Emery, like defending really well. He turned Tyrone Mings into a competent defender.
Yes.
Like, Tyrone Mings was literally one of their best players for the last 3 months. He's just racking up points on FPL as well, and I didn't have it in my team. I was fuming about that. I was like, why have you got Tyrone Mings? Charles right. Villa have always had like some good players. They got money. They're a deceptively rich team. Like they spend a lot of money in the summer. They got players on pretty high wages as well, and they've got good draw as well. They've got a lot of clout in Europe, like signing players like Coutinho and things like that. Like they can sign some good players. So I joked about it when I was talking to you and I was saying Pau Torres to Villa, and then I was like, you know what? Villarreal don't have European football. Yeah, and Emery's there. I'm like, let's not get it twisted. Aston Villa can go and spend 60 million on a player. Yeah. Right? They can do it. So that Pau Torres might be a little bit excessive, but you never know. You never know in football these days. But I think now he's got European football, they're gonna it wouldn't be surprised if they don't spend another 150, 200 in the summer because they got European football. Emery will say to him, look, if you give me the players, I'll win it for you because look at my track record.
I know this
yeah, exactly. And this is the Conference League. So let's do Aston Villa can win the Conference League next season. In fact, I'm going to put money on Aston Villa to win the Conference League next season, as long as Emery's still there. So yeah, I think they had the good season. I do like Emery. I really do. He wasn't the right fit for Arsenal, but I do like him. I think he's a top. I think he's an elite coach. And I think he's proven that. at the right club, he can really make the difference.
Yeah.
Especially in cup competitions. But to get Villa from where they were straight up the table in that short space of time with no additions, and playing his style of football and bring it to the Premier League and just doing 4-4-2, defensively solid, very fluid in terms of going forward. He's got Ollie Watkins, which is the perfect kind of striker that he likes. It's like the same thing with Lacazette he had, same thing he had with Moreno, except for the height, I'd say with Lacazette. But, a striker with a very good first touch will get you a few goals here and then, but isn't, required to do that, but just link up the play. First touch here, one, touch the ball once, lays it off to other players, runs in behind, moves around, presses. So yeah, I like Villa. I think they'll be one to watch this next year to see what they do in the summer. But they could be hanging around that top six very soon.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think Emery's problem, the same Craig says in the chat, Emery's problem when he took over from Wenger, same with Moyes at Manchester United. Yeah, clearly a top manager, and I think that's the key bit with not his team.
Yeah.
Without the strengthening in January, now he's got the opportunity to stamp that team and to become something. Villa have got that foundations. They've got some good young players in there. Watkins, as we said, Ramsey, Douglas Luiz is a good player too. I think Villa, yeah. And you could see them displacing a Tottenham or somebody, in what has been the established top six, should we say. And they're a big club. They've always been a big club. They just kind of been in the doldrums for a bit, and the Gerrard experiment obviously didn't work. So Emery's a great appointment for them. I think they didn't get him because he's gone to PSG. Marco Asensio has been linked with him the other week, and names like this.
But
Villa have got the pull, as you said. So great season for them,
especially with Emery there,
Conference League,
like with his record in Europe,
his contacts. 100%. And their defensive record, as you said, superb. They conceded sort of 46. So, outside of the top four, that's as good as anybody else in the league. So, level with Brentford, really good. Struggled with some goal scoring was the one thing slightly that let them down with only 51 goals all season. But a bit more of one or two in the transfer window.
An attacker, weren't they? Yeah, because when Ramsey came back, they were a bit better going forward. He was injured. They need another striker or someone to play next to Watkins, or rotate with Watkins to offer something else, and we'll see.
Bournemouth. Another that a couple of us may have had them down for relegation early on in the season. Another that possibly surprised us all. Gary O'Neill did the business with Bournemouth. 15th they ended up. Well safe in the end. I mean, they were well and truly on their deck chairs for the last couple of weeks, which is why I think they slipped down. But Gary O'Neill at Bournemouth. Is this a one-season thing, Lucas, or are they? Or can he pull the magic out again?
Is Heather in the chat?
He's not here yet.
Yeah, they're getting relegated next season. No, I think it's a one season. I think it's just a one season thing. New manager bounce, and then I wasn't convinced by them. They were picking up wins, and I was just like, I don't know how they're doing this, but fair play to them. Like, they're being very clinical when it mattered. They're not conceding a lot of goals, but ultimately, I just don't think that team's good enough. It's not good enough. No, I can't see them. I can't see them staying up. I can't see them being anywhere above that top 15 next season.
Yeah. You wonder long term how it's going to turn out, and they seem to just pick results up just out of nowhere, particularly home results. I mean, they beat Liverpool. I mean, the game they got punted by Liverpool early on in the season, and then they turned around and beat 1-0, didn't they?
Yeah.
In the reverse, they've caused people trouble all season, and one or two shrewd signings amongst what was they didn't do a lot early doors. It was the whole Scott Parker thing, wasn't it? They didn't have anything to spend. They had a takeover, and he got a bit antsy. He's probably. I mean, what are you thinking now, Shah? If you're Scott Parker sitting at Bournemouth and saying that they didn't have enough to stay up, and there they are in 15th.
I know. To be fair, though, I think Scott Parker kind of did cause the trouble for himself, didn't he? I've never really rated him as a manager as well, Scott Parker. So I think it was the right decision for him to go. But I think Bournemouth will struggle as well next season. I'm not going to say if you're going to get relegated, but I think they'll definitely be down there.
Yeah, you look at sides that are clearly strengthening, sides that are survived, going to do more, people coming up. They've lost some players already. Chris has made a good point. Yeah, Jefferson Lerma's already one who's gone, so that's a massive player they've got to overturn.
I think obviously you've got to think as well, the teams coming up, like your Burnley, your Sheffield United. I'm not going to say Luton because it's a weird one with Luton because as much as I think they will struggle, they've got the whole thing about the ground in their favour. So I think obviously parachute payments as well, the teams who are obviously coming up, I think they'll be a lot stronger than Bournemouth and some of the teams that are obviously just survived this season.
There's some good sides, you say, coming up. And we've got to look at this season. All three stayed up. All three stayed up for the first time in God knows how long. That all three all stayed up. And you've got three very different kinds of sides coming up too. So yeah, could be trouble. But I think if you're just Bournemouth, you're just happy the first season's gone all right.
Yeah,
enjoy
definitely.
the summer. I mean, Bournemouth's not a bad place to be in the summer anyway. But when you stayed in the Premier League, then they'll be having a lovely time, I'm sure. Next up, Brentford. Brentford were another one who I think second season syndrome. We all thought this could be a bit tricky, but wow, again a top half finish on the verge. They almost made Europe as well, which again is kind of dreamland for Brentford to be in that position. Ivan Toney was fantastic, and now obviously they've got a different issue, but they also had that kind of in the background, and you see that hungover club sometimes. It didn't really, I don't know what you thought, because Tony's form didn't really seem to dip, did it?
Yeah, that was probably my most inaccurate prediction at the beginning of the season was Brentford to get relegated. Brentford and West Ham are the two I got completely wrong. Just swap them around, basically. That's what it would have been. Yeah. But no, I thought, you know what it was? I just saw Sheffield when I looked at Brentford last season. I saw Sheffield United. I saw the exact same, even the same system. Very similar to what Sheffield played when they got promoted. With similar profiles of players, although Sheffield they didn't have an Ivan Toney figure when they got promoted. They didn't have a consistent goal scorer. And I should have thought about that, because if you've got a consistent goal scorer in the Premier League, you're not getting relegated. You can have the worst defense. You're not getting relegated if you've got a guy scoring 15 goals for you. Yeah. It's not going to happen. So Toney just flew, and he's a brilliant footballer. And even when he was missing, and Mbeumo stepped up, and they've got some good players on the bench. You come into the, you notice they bring on the same sort of players around like this 60th, 70th minute and offer a different dynamic, and they're solid. They've just got some very, very solid footballers in that team and a very good coach. So yeah, Brentford look like they're here to stay. But we'll see how they start next season without Toney, because it could be different starting this season. Having him go towards the end, but starting this season without Toney is different, because again, those guys can step in towards the end when you're safe and you're secure. When you're at the beginning of the season, it's like everyone's on 0 points. When we're missing our best player, that's a different proposition. So they could struggle a bit at the beginning of the season. But yeah, I think Brentford, they're tough to beat. Brentford.
They are tough to beat. At home, they're a nightmare. Yeah. I guess the only way they can look at the Toney situation is they possibly would have lost him, wouldn't they, in the summer? If this wasn't for this thing, there'd be some, I'd think they'd been linked to Newcastle, to Manchester United, to probably all those teams. I think would be sniffing around. So, but to set up a team knowing then your star man comes back in the second half, it's probably quite a difficult way to kind of deal with things. So yeah, Thomas Frank's done a fantastic job. Alongside it, they've got a good squad of players in there. They've got a good nucleus, and they're starting to gain Premier League experience, which is kind of what Brighton were doing, and now looking at where Brighton are too. They kind of have had a similar kind of trajectory as well. So they've done very good. And of course, they've just signed a Rochdale player, so Brentford are on to bigger things undoubtedly with that signing. And Heather's here. Heather has just missed the Bournemouth chat. So Lucas says don't watch back what you said about next season. Don't watch it back. So welcome, thank you for joining us, Heather. Lovely to have you as always. So Brentford, very good season. They just missed out. A team that didn't miss out, that did the business, Brighton and Hove Albion. I think they've all become a little soft spot for Brighton and Hove Albion, and the way they've done things. We had Graham Potter at the start of the season and thought, okay, Potter to Chelsea, good night Vienna. Roberto De Zerbi comes in. What a season they've had, sharp. Brighton, wow. How do you go about that?
I thought they'd struggle, obviously, when Potter left, because he's been there for so many years, hasn't he? And he's kind of like built them up. But when he's come in, he's done brilliant. And I just think the whole recruitment at Brighton, whoever's behind that, has done a fantastic job, because some of these gems that they've pulled out of nowhere, It's just brilliant, isn't it? Just I love watching them play. I just like seeing a club that has built themselves up and got themselves to the position they're in, because I remember like them playing us, in League Two a few seasons ago, and just how they've built themselves up and got there. It's just fantastic to see, but it's just amazing, like seeing these clubs, and it's not as if it's been like a one season wonder. They've gone from strength to strength each season. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to watching Brighton next season. Obviously, they've lost McAllister now; he's gone to Liverpool, but for recruitment and who they've obviously recruited in recent seasons, I don't think that will be a massive problem for him.
As a lower league franchise, does teams like Brighton, do they inspire the lower league, and so you're looking at them and you almost feel more affiliation because you're like, they've made the run. I'm saying lower league because technically we haven't started next season.
Well, if it was another team, then yeah, I don't think we'll go anywhere near Brighton. I'm just happy to get back to League Two right now. But yeah, it is really good. And like I said, we were playing the likes of like your Bournemouths, your Brightons, not that long ago, your Lutons as well. So it is fantastic to see. So yeah, I'm really happy for Brighton. I really am.
They've been superb. And one thing has been their recruitment, not just of players, but of managers as well.
Yeah, true.
Potter
yeah.
And then De Zerbi, but we've all spoken many times on the pod about the McAllisters, the Matomas, the Stupinan, the level of talent they've in. That Enciso comes in towards the end of the season, you're like, oh, they've got another one that's quite good as well. They've been absolutely fantastic with their recruitment. And I think with other clubs, I don't know what you think, Lucas, but other clubs you'd worry someone like McAllister going, but with Brighton you go, I'm pretty sure they've got a long list of.
They've probably already got their replacement.
Their FM shortlist ain't bad, is it?
They were playing, what's his name? And Enciso was playing there, and he looked fine. So yeah, I wouldn't. They can sell whoever they want. They'll be. I mean, there's a limit on how long you can do that. Look at Leicester.
Yeah.
So, but for this, for now, I think they're okay. But at some point, they're gonna have to make a choice as to whether they want to properly reinvest, or they'll be fighting relegation at some point when, if De Zerbi goes and they get a manager who hasn't quite clicked and they haven't got the right set of players, that system doesn't quite work long term. But they're like everyone's favorite team, as they say. I think their team of the season, just in terms of football, like how they played, the consistency throughout the entire season, and just some of the exciting players they've got, and some of the football, and like even the goals that they scored and things like that, and some of the moments, like. I think they were the favorite team for most people this season. If you had to pick one, Brian. So, yeah, I like their players. I like them. I don't like Brian, but I like their players.
It's
They've been fun to watch.
Sanchez as well, who's obviously their goalkeeper. A couple of seasons ago, we were on loan from Brighton playing for us, and it's mad to see just some step he's took up now. It's just mental. So I'm sure it was only like 3-4 seasons ago. Like. It wasn't that long.
Yeah, they've got a number of players that are amongst those kind of more recognised signings that they've made that are sort of stuck in, that have come up, that, the Lewis Dunks, etc. They've been with them for a long time coming through that. So they've just been so exciting to watch. The squad's another one that you're going to go, okay, well, Europe, because Europe can have a massive effect next season. And we've seen it in recent seasons with, say, Burnley were in Europe, and then they kind of had a downturn off of that. Even Leicester now, you look at that, and has Europe damaged them over the last couple of seasons? West Ham this season have struggled while contending with the Conference League. It's a different animal, but I don't know. I just think it will be exciting. It could be fireworks. Brighton in Europe could be fireworks with the way that they play. And a number of those players have got European experience. Players like Matona came from the Bundesliga, and a lot of them have been about in Europe. So it won't be.
Haven't they signed James Milner as well? Is it not like a done deal?
Milner Lallana there now.
Yeah,
it is. It's the Liverpool. It's the Liverpool retirement home. We're going to call it. Yeah. I mean, Milner for McAllister there was some money involved in that switch too. But
tell you is good though. That striker they've got, Evan Ferguson, he's good.
Oh yeah,
he looks good. Like he look good. He might get himself a cheeky bid from a top club in the next couple of seasons.
Yeah, I think so. I think the injury probably made him slip slightly more under the radar at the end of the season. Otherwise, it could have been this summer. But I think that'll keep him at least a summer now. Be be wow. So as Chris says, Sanchez now in the Spain squad regularly. So yeah, they've got some depth because they're playing Steele, weren't they, at the end of the season as well?
Who again made some amazing saves for them.
Yeah. And going from a team that played a fantastic season to a team that have not played a very fantastic season, have played a very dreadful season. They have Brighton's manager. They don't have Brighton's manager. They now have a new manager. Lucas, Chelsea, put that smile away.
Can we just laugh?
Todd Bowley FC. They've gone away with murder this season. The fact that no one's given them. They really, because this is just like it's kind of a knock on Chelsea in the fact that like they're not getting as much shit as they should be for the fact that they've completely tanked the season and been an absolute joke. Can you imagine if this was United, Arsenal, Liverpool?
We'd be getting killed, absolutely crucified.
No one would stop talking about it. But the fact that it's Chelsea, it just goes to show. That's all I'm saying. Just goes to show. Because if that was us, you wouldn't hear the end of it every single week. You wouldn't hear the end of it. Whereas Chelsea have fallen under the radar. But I think there's also a little bit of like people expect them to come back because they've done it before. They're such like a
Chelsea roller coaster.
Yeah, it's like it's in there. It's in there. The last 20 years. This is Abramovich's reign, but it's not Abramovich anymore. So I don't know if they will bounce back the same way. But they've been an embarrassment this year, and they've kind of proven money doesn't get you success in football, which most people kind of knew. But it was like you can spend as much as you want. If you don't spend it in the right areas, it's not going to do anything. But they've got some very good players. I mean, the Lampard decision, what the hell? So, yeah, the ownership is all over the place. They have got some good players. See what they do with Poch if they stick it out of him. But Chelsea, they're not used to projects. Like, this isn't what Chelsea do. So I don't see it working. I don't see the fan base accepting Pochettino coming in and going, well, we're going to finish 8th this year. Then we're going to finish probably 5th or 4th next year. No trophies, but we're slow. I don't think Chelsea fans are used to that. It's not the club that they support. So I don't know what is next for Chelsea, but yeah, it could be a long time before they get back in that conversation. But again, you don't know. They do have some good players and a couple of decent signs in the summer. You know, Poch, I don't think Poch is good enough to even win them anything of significance. But yeah, I'm enjoying it. I would have loved if they got relegated. That'd been funny, but yeah, they were an embarrassment this year. That was the worst season that any team has had pound for pound in their history. Was Chelsea this year because of the fact that they spent 600 million and finished 12th.
And finished 12th behind a practically almost relegated Crystal Palace at one point, as well as other teams that kind of overtook them as well. I mean, they were an embarrassment. Say Finbar Owens saying if they play like that next year, definitely relegation. Yeah. I think the worry is they'll come back. As you said, there's quality in the squad. There's quality in that squad. There's good players, but again, there's just so many. There's so many.
There's a lot,
and there's a
lot.
They
tank it.
They tank. They do.
It's their culture. It's like they're like a American team. They're like if they're not going to win, they just tank the season. And you got players who are used to that style, and there's just a culture of Chelsea. It's like you can just tell they just can't be arsed. They're like, well, we're not going to win the league or the Champions League, so what's the point?
That's why the Lampard thing maybe makes sense because you're like, we need someone to throw under the bus, so let's have
exactly
under the bus.
Take the hit for the players. That's true, actually.
Take the hit. Let Poch come in, clean slate. You know, everyone's crucified as the previous year, and we'll go again.
Poch can only do better than Lampard.
Just think though, as well, most of these players are on 8-year contracts, so we've got them for ages.
God, I mean,
some were, some are good, but some are just like that Sterling one. Finbar's just says Sterling is just another system player. Like it's like he's not a bad player, but he's a system player. He looked better than he was in that Pep system. Pep created a system that helped him get goals like over and over again consistently. But you see it when he plays for England, and even though he is pretty good for England, he's not the guy you want to rely on to lead your attack. You want him just poaching at the back post, and he'll get goals in the right position, but. Yeah, at Chelsea, they're passing him the ball and trying to get him to create, and it's just not working. But yeah, Madueke, I think, is a very good player. Enzo Fernandez is a very good player. And Nkunku is a very good player. Fofana, I'm not quite sure if this was a one-season thing at Leicester because he's looked really, really shaky. Cucurella, I think, is gone. They're talking about they need to get rid. And then who else have they? They've got to get a right back. Reece James's legs looks like he might be struggling with long-term injuries now.
But this is like what you said with Chelsea and getting away with it. Like Cucurella, they bought Cucurella for ridiculous money.
Yeah.
Imagine like if we sold Anthony this summer, having bought him last summer, we'd be getting absolutely crucified for that expenditure just chucked out the window, and we go again. And it's bonkers, absolutely bonkers. But it didn't get enough. It didn't get enough in. But they've got no Europe next season. They've got nothing else. They've got time to knuckle down. He's also inheriting a team which isn't anybody's team. It's a Todd Bowley mismatch of whatever. But there should be enough within there for him to go, right, forget about the rest of this, move that out, and then focus on this piece here, and you can get something out of it. So I think this is the worry. We all know how Chelsea work. That this next season they could be a different prospect, but this season, D-, E, F, however far down the alphabet you want to go. Terrible season for Chelsea fans. A terrible season turned good. Crystal Palace were in some serious trouble, and they've gone and finished above Chelsea. They've had a phenomenal run. We joked at the time about Roy Hodgson-Shah, but I think that was more the case of the fact that the man's earned his retirement. But
I know.
As much as we can say a manager impact, what's happened there? Crystal Palace are 11th. They finished 11th.
It was me and my big mouth again, honestly. The amount of times I say something and then they prove me wrong. But I just think it's mental. He's like Mr. Crystal Palace, isn't it? Like, it's as if it's been a mad season for it, hasn't it? Like bringing the managers back of ex-clubs and them obviously like doing a bit. But I just think it's mental how he's managed that. But Vieira, obviously, and you think of Patrick Vieira and just the difference. I don't know. It's just mind-blowing.
Well, the 3 games before Vieira got the sack, they hadn't had a shot on goal, did they? I think there was some crazy stat. And then the next game, they had more shots than anybody else in the league or something at that point in the season.
Roy Hodgson ball.
It's the Roy charm. The Roy charm.
He knows how to get the best out of that set of players, but then they need to start looking for a manager soon.
Yeah.
Vieira was good, but it was just he was trying to play a system that he didn't have the players for. He knew they played some good football at times, like really good football with when, players were fit and he had the right combination. But the majority of that team, you could tell, just weren't on the same page. And I think he definitely probably regrets he didn't use, I think the biggest thing when I looked at it was like, why were you not playing Eze?
Yeah.
Like, it was his underutilization of Eze was a big question mark because we all knew how quality he was from that first season at Palace, and then now look, he's an unreal footballer.
He stepped up and he's been massive to say everyone's giving Roy some love in the chat, and rightly so.
Yeah, go on, Palace.
Lovely season. So we'll see who they get in the summer. They'll pick out a new manager and probably give Roy a call again in March when it doesn't work out again. And this can be his little sort of 2 months, and then he'll go off for the summer and have a lovely time. So Crystal Palace at some stage, I think we were really worried about them, but they finished well safe. Good season for Crystal Palace in the end. Was a team who were struggling right to the end of the final day. Everton looked in some serious trouble. They went and appointed an absolute legend, of course, in Sean Dyche. And Sean Dyche did what Sean Dyche does and keeps teams in the Premier League by hook or by crony. They're in there. So Everton are still a Premier League club, but is it going to get better for Everton, Lucas? Is this, and massively they needed this financially, didn't they, with the stadium coming? But
I can't believe they survived.
What do you make of Everton?
I hope Kira's not watching because I can't stand Everton. I used to really like them when Moyes was the manager. Actually, I think a few people did because they were a tough side, and they didn't have they didn't have like stars. But they were very nasty, but they were like a Sunday league team that just was always up for it, especially if you're a big side. And even there's still an element of that with Everton. Like they always give us a bit of problem. They give you a little bit of a problem as well sometimes. So it always feels like a bit of a big game when we play Everton, Arsenal, Everton, United, Everton. Always feels a bit like there's something on the line. But they've been run. It's been really, really badly run for years, and this is kind of the culmination of it. And they just about made it, but they've got a big summer because this is next season. They won't. It's not going to go the same way. So they've got to figure it out, and I don't really know how they figure it out. They got I don't really know who they sign. I don't know what manager's going to come in there. I'm confused as to where Everton go from here, or if it's a case of we just need to survive for the next 2-3 seasons and then work in the background and see.
They're such a question mark, aren't they? I mean, that's the second season in a row they've survived on the last day.
Yeah.
But I think they're a bit like when Villa were down there. They believe they should be higher, but at the minute, not really based on any merit, bar history. I think, as you said, we remember Everton, and they seem to give us the games. But this Everton's just a completely different team now. And you've got Dyche in there. What can Dyche do over the summer? Can he bring anybody in? What's he going to do long term with Everton? Perhaps now he gets the opportunity to see. So that might be something they hope. But they are, they are a team longest reign in the top flight. They still
I think they'll struggle.
Yeah,
I think they'll really struggle. I think the only thing they've really got going for him is Dyche, and obviously he's been in that position before, but you can't just put everything on him because obviously it's a back room. I think they need changes like behind the scenes for it to obviously get better, and right now I don't think it's going to happen.
Well, you look at some of the signings that they'd kind of made as well. You think that they had Connor Cody, who they've, the loan deal, they've just pulled him back. In theory, he thought he was going from Wolves up to Everton, didn't he? He thought that was a step up to it, and it's not. You look at where Wolves are. Wolves are miles ahead of where Everton have been this season. You've got someone like Luca Dino, who was at Aston Villa, moved to Everton again, thinking it's a step up. It's not. Everton's name and stigma is still there, but there's just nothing. They've not been able to put anything together, and Dyche will make them a different. What he needs to do is probably go back to that Moyes kind of style. I think make them difficult to beat, make them nasty. I think he understands that, but he just hasn't got a squad of players.
He's got the players, yeah.
I'm worried for him. I honestly think they could possibly go down next season.
Fulham are up next. Fulham had a good season. Fulham did well. They were another we thought might struggle, but Marco Silva's got a good little team there with some top players, I think. So, Charlotte, did you see? Was that a surprise for you? Fulham doing as well as they did?
It was a surprise seeing them do as well as they did. I had them comfortably up there, safety. I thought they've learned obviously from the previous seasons. Mitrovic were obviously on a high, coming up from the championship. I think, did he break the record of goals in the championship? So I thought he was on a high. Obviously, the manager. So I thought they'd be comfortable up there, but I didn't expect them to finish where they did. I think it was a fantastic season for them.
It really was. They were another that were tough to beat. I remember watching that opening game against Liverpool and thinking, okay, Liverpool aren't quite at this, but this Fulham, there's a decent side there. He's got some, and players he had in there. They brought in some one or two good players. Paulinho in midfield was super. How good was Andres Pereira this season? Willian
was outstanding for them this year.
Madness, absolute madness.
Even that the Spurs striker they signed was really good when Mitrovic was out. Carlos Vinicius, I was watching him playing that. I was like, this guy's actually pretty good. Like as a striker, like he's quick, strong, like tall, and like can finish as well. And I was like, this guy's decent. He looked awful at Spurs, but that might just be Spurs.
They've picked up like all the rejects from other clubs, haven't they? For a good team,
safe haven. I do like Fulham
all together.
I really like them in the 2000s when they were in the Prem.
Yeah, I did. I've always had that. Fulham's been my granddad's team. They won the first league team I watched.
I used to love Clint Dempsey.
Clint Dempsey,
I love
Brian McBride and Clint Dempsey.
Brian McBride, Clint Dempsey,
absolutely.
Berbatov was Fulham, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Berbatov.
Louis Saha as well.
Darren Bent. Was
Darren Bent did go to Fulham for a bit.
Darren Bent.
They had
Louis Saha,
They had Edwin van der Sar. Do you remember?
Edwin van der Sar,
Madness.
Chris Smalling.
The legend that is.
They've always had some very quirky, good players. Like they've always had some overperformers in that team, and they've given it a go. I like for them, but I thought they were going to stay up. I didn't think it'd be as good as that, but I thought they would stay up because of the Mitrovic factor. I thought it was like he's going to have a good season, and then some of the signings they made, Paulinho as well. I was like, they'll be all right. But they smashed it.
They've been doing superbly well. And so just come up in the chat. Hangerland and Hughes.
Hangerland, bloody
Breda,
hell.
Hanger, Big Breda. Whoa, Big Breda, Hangerland. What a legend he was. Clint Dempsey, the first American to score a hat-trick in the Premier League. Yes, he was.
Who
And
was that? Canute, that was another player they had. Freddie Canute.
Freddie Canute. I got some classics. Absolute classics.
Lewis Bowen-Morte.
Lewis Bowen-Morte. We all love Fulham, is what we decided.
Zamora. Can't forget Bobby Zamora.
Bobby Zamora. We need to do an all about Fulham just so we can talk about these players.
Just be us just reeling off old footballers from the early 2000s. Yeah. We all
mid-table legends, that's what they are.
Yes.
Absolutely. Apart from Chris. Chris doesn't like them. He can't stand them. But, we all like different things and we all have opinions. That's fine. That's what this podcast is all about.